Alright, welcome back to another Learn With Me. I am a bit tired, it's at the end of the day, but I'm trying to film this because it was supposed to go up yesterday, but I was having a very down day and I couldn't get myself to find inspiration to do this, but today we're doing it and I just finished the postcard video as well today and I'm very excited about it and I don't know, it kind of fueled my creative energy a little bit that went so well, but it is late in the day, so that's what I'm saying. Anyway, the theme for this Learn With Me, or tutorial as they are called, is adapting mythology and experiences to projects, which is pretty much what I do all the time when it comes to creating stories and my books. And it's going to be a very talky video. I'm going to write probably more than I draw, and I haven't figured out anything else than the basic setup for this video, and I'm leaving the rest to kind of come naturally because it's more of a it's better to kind of do the mapping and figuring things out and coming up with the ideas while I'm doing it. This is something I realized last time when we were doing the messy rooms. Well, actually, all my videos have been like this, but I like it when it comes naturally and I'm just naturally talking about the subject and coming up with like reasonings for why I do certain things as I go. It just works better for me, and that is why these videos are called Learn With Me as well. If you're new here and new to these videos, they're called Learn With Me because I'm sitting here for, I don't know, half an hour to an hour and just talking and explaining, and I'm inviting you all to learn with me, pretty much. And also, if you have any ideas for another tutorial for next month, please put that in the comment section on the Patreon post, and I will look at it for the next poll. Anyway, I'm also happy it's not going to be a very joy video. I'm not going to draw that much this video because my arm, I decided to go a bit too hard on pull, and this is my right arm, which I draw with. I can't straighten it any more than this, and that's nice. But I have coffee, I have everything I need, so I guess we'll just get into it. So, adapting mythologies and experiences. I've added fairy tales in here as well because I feel like the main thing that most people do or most businesses do when they create a movie or fantasy story or whatever, they very often take the basic setup from a fairy tale, maybe mythology, but most likely a fairy tale, and add to it. And I'm going to show you how I will take something as simple as a fairy tale and add and remove things, and how that can create a story that is recognizable for people and they will feel like they understand your story, but it will change. You will change it enough that it's yours and that it's more interesting, so people don't already know the end of the story. They want to be surprised. And yeah, as most of you know, the biggest business to earn on this stuff is Disney. They have done so many inspirational, adapting fairy tales, and that I think all of Disney's biggest princess movies or anything like that is always based on some sort of fairy tale. Even Frozen, it started out as adapting what was it called? The Snow Queen, but they changed it enough so now you won't even notice it's like the Ice Queen or the Snow Queen or whatever it's called. Anyway, what I'm saying is it's very, very legal to do this. Fairy tales are not copyrighted anymore. You can use them as much as you want, which is really good because that means that you can use it without feeling guilty because everyone uses it and everyone loves using it, and I think it's the best way to create a story that's a bit more interesting than just maybe your own thing. That sounded horrible, but what I'm saying is it might help you create something that makes sense if it's the first time you're creating a story or a book. Basing it off either mythology, fairy tales, or even your own experiences. Basing it off of something will make it easier to continue, to make something to finish it. I don't know what I'm saying half the time I'm saying something. So we are going to look at my characters here, and yes, I'm doing this now like this, and the only reason I'm doing it is because it's an excuse for me to draw these characters, and it's an excuse for me to actually work on the story without actually taking time away from the Snowcat Prince, which is my main project at the moment, and I need to finish that. And I'm going to talk about other... Anyway, I'm very excited about drawing these guys more, but I'm not going to draw them more today. I'm just going to figure out the storyline. And I have a basic setup, and I'm going to go through that with you guys. And I'm probably also going to talk about different inspirations and mythologies that I put into my other books, like Grey Legs, and I think I have it in every story that I've made. I have it in Grey Legs, I have it in Fur and the Moon Rabbit, I do have a few in Snowcat Prince, and now we're putting it into these two characters' story. If you haven't watched these videos, or if you weren't present in the last live stream that we had with patrons, we created a second character to this setup, I guess. I don't know. Reed was created in a video for my YouTube channel where we created a new character, and I really love her. And I actually did some more sketches of her, which I'll show, which is the reason why I wanted to do their story today. Also, I feel like I'm very incoherent today, so I'm sorry if you can't understand me properly. It's just me. But yeah, I was drawing her a little bit the other day because I felt like it. She's very, very fun to draw. And we designed this other character during my live stream, and somebody suggested that I drew a satire, or a fawn, a female fawn, and I was like, yes. And then we created this lady, which we called during the stream Briar Rose. It started with Rose, and then somebody said Briar, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then somebody pointed out that that is the name. The reason somebody suggested Briar was because the original, I think, Brothers Grimm fairy tale for Sleeping Beauty, it's called Little Briar Rose, so it kind of fit perfectly. So now I thought I would look at the outline of the Sleeping Beauty as it is as in the fairy tale, not the Disney adaptation, and I'm gonna adapt my own version out of the Sleeping Beauty. So we're gonna look at the basic setup of I really can't speak today. It's very annoying. I'm trying to focus on my words and they sound weird, and I'm sorry, but we'll get through this somehow. But yes, we're gonna start by looking at the basic layout or structure of the Sleeping Beauty, the fairy tale, and we'll talk more about the myths and experiences later, because I feel like adapting myths are pretty much the same, or mythology is pretty much the same as adapting as adapting fairy tales, but adapting experiences is harder because you have to. I feel like it's harder to find a structure that has a good beginning, middle, and end. You can't just do what I'm going to do with the fairy tale with the experiences, but well, you can, but it's harder. So I would suggest using a fairy tale to begin with and just try it. I think most schools, actually concept art schools, will ask you to find the fairy tale and adapt it, just because it is such a good way to create something new and tweak it. A story we have all heard before, but different. So I was reading through the Sleeping Beauty Wikipedia page, I can't speak, and I thought we'd go through it a little bit together. So you can Google any fairy tale that you want. You can even go deeper into Brothers Grimm and find other fairy tales that they wrote down, and folk tales, and you can really find the really obscure ones if you really want to. I have a few that is kind of folktale, mythology based from Norway that I really like, that I often use in my own stories. But yeah, I read through this whole page, almost whole page, I like the original version, even though it's a bit different from like Disney's adaptation, which makes sense because you need to make it simpler for children and like simple animation instead of all this stuff. One of them, the Brothers Grimm one, I think it was, or I think it's the Basil version narrative. She gets raped, which I don't want to use in her sleep. So we're not going to use that. Or maybe we will. That will be kind of a dark twist to whatever story I decide to do. Anyway, the basic structure of the Sleeping Beauty is that it starts with a king and a queen who only will have tried for a child for a very long time, and they finally get one. So they invite, apparently in this story, 7 fairies to come and bless the child and be godmothers. So let's start there. So we have king and queen. I can't write apparently. King and queen have a child. A child. As a child. And then we have 7 fairies. And they are godmothers. In this basic first, I guess original version of the Sleeping Beauty, there is also an additional one old evil fairy who shows up during the celebration without actually being invited because everyone thought she was dead. So she shows up anyway and she's really, really mad. And when it comes to the point where the 7 fairies decides to bless the child with different attributes or blessings, I guess I just said that, they bless her with... I'm trying to read here. Have I? Oh, I did click on some wrong one here. There we go. Beauty, wit, grace, dance, song, and goodness. And the evil fairy also decides to curse this child because she's so mad, and curses the child with that they will die, like we all know. Enchants the infant princess so that she will one day prick her finger on a spindle of a spinning wheel and die. So we have spinning wheel. Prick. This is just how I kind of write down things. Your method might be different, but just like figuring out what the basic structure and like characters are, it will help you tremendously. It's the best way to kind of figure everything out. So these ones blessed her with beauty, wherever. I don't want to write that down. But the last fairy, the 7th fairy, only 6 fairies like blessed her before the evil fairy came in and cursed her. So the 7th fairy, who hadn't yet blessed the child yet, said instead of dying, she will just sleep for 100 years. So it was a little bit different. So the Sleeping Beauty, or the child, is cursed to one day prick her finger and fall asleep for 100 years. Unless a son of a king comes and kiss her, then she'll wake up. So, but this is changed to prick 100 years sleep. I don't know what the I guess, goal of this fairy tale is to tell children. Sometimes, like, usually fairy tales have some sort of agenda behind it to like teach a child something. So I don't know what this one would be. Don't ignore people that you don't like because they might curse you. Maybe? I don't know. It's 100 years of sleep. And a king's son kiss. Well, how? I don't know. I don't know how to write this down. So, we have the basic structure. There is more to this. She wakes up, she has children. There's other sections to the story where like an evil godmother might like try and eat the children. It's a whole setup. Just go to that Wikipedia page and read the stories. It's interesting, but I'm just gonna focus on the basic first half of it. That the same that Disney did, but I will put my own spin on it. And I was thinking about this just a few hours ago, actually, on how I could change this. And I was looking at my two characters, which I knew I wanted to use for the story. I had Reed and I had Briar Rose, but I don't actually know. I was like, is Reed going to be the Sleeping Beauty? But that doesn't make that much sense, so like, I feel like she would be the journey, like the journey person or whatever. What is journey person? I really cannot speak. What? The protagonist. In Sleeping Beauty is the protagonist. Something that you can do when you're adapting something is you can have the story, the base story. Let's call it the base. You have the base. You can go a lot of different ways with that base. You can change it up like to different things, and it's very, very interesting. It's very, you just have to be creative and think about how you can change it. It's interesting. You can go before the base, so you can go back in time before the base story happens, or you can go in the future. And you can then change, did it happily? Did it end happy? Sad? So you can pretty much change it to be whatever you want, which is the cool thing about this. So I was thinking, we have Sleeping Beauty, which is Briar Rose, which is what we named this beautiful tall lady. If you haven't seen her actual art, I'll show you guys. This beautiful gal is Briar Rose. So when we drew her, I imagined her as sort of a Galadriel character, which is I would call it not evil, neutral, but chaotic. So they're crazy, pretty much. So I wanted to have Briar. How do I even Briar? So we have our character here, Briar Rose. It's gonna be the side story, the backstory. But for the book itself, if I ended up doing one, it would be about Reed's journey. But each character have their own setup. So by having a setup for one of the big characters, which is going to be the chaotic neutral character, it just adds more to the story. Anyway, I'm getting off track. This is a really boring tutorial. So we have Briar Rose. And she is Sleeping Beauty. So she got pricked at 17. Let's do 17. And then fell asleep. Oh, another cool thing that happens actually in the original Sleeping Beauty fairy tale is that when Sleeping Beauty does prick her finger and falls asleep, the king actually asks the fairies to come back, not the evil fairy, just the other fairies. They ask them to come back, and they put the whole castle to sleep so that Sleeping Beauty won't have to wake up alone. And I think that's sort of sweet. So the whole castle is asleep. Oh. Anyway, yeah, fell asleep. But then what I want to change it with, instead of her being awakened by a prince, pretty much, a prince, she sleeps for 100 years. She never wakes up. Her whole castle and her sleeps for 100 years. But I think what I want to do is that... So 100 years. Slept for 100 years. Castle. So here I could either have the whole castle also be asleep for 100 years, so when she wakes up, she will have the people around her, but I want to make her crazy, which sounds horrible, but you have to be mean to your characters. That's the only way a story would move forward. If you were nice to them all the time, it wouldn't be very interesting. So I'm gonna actually have all the people in the castle, the whole castle that's asleep, actually just die off. Horrible, but yeah. Dies before. So, combining these two, wakes up alone. Her home is just full of brambles. She's just the only one. But I do want her to be some sort of all-knowing creature. I want her to have been alive for a long, long time. But let's do this. While asleep, when she's asleep, she's pretty much half dead because she's a long sleep, and she will be the same age when she wakes up. She won't grow old. That's a part of her curse. The sleep spell put on the rest of the castle is different, so it won't actually contain her age. See, I'm just thinking out loud here. That's the whole point of this video. just to let you guys see what I'm thinking when I'm doing things. But yeah, so her curse spell keeps her young. Power to see, feel everything. So when she's asleep, she can connect to, ooh, what if the whole thing with Briar Rose, the whole thing with roses and brambles, there's going to be brambles everywhere. Maybe the main part of the curse is brambles, and she doesn't get pricked by a spinning wheel, because that's kind of boring. Who would do that? She gets pricked. So pricked by a rose. Brick fire rose. And that whole thing, the whole curse with the rose thing, is because the fairy, the evil fairy, has some sort of power with roses, I guess. That's something that has to be decided while I'm designing the fairies, because I haven't even thought about what they would be yet. They might be something different. The cool thing about when you're adapting something is that you can take the basic character, like Sleeping Beauty in this instance, would in the original story it's a human, and a human princess, a human girl, but in my story we have these fawns instead, and that's the main thing. And if we want to take this even further, fawns are a part of, oh, is it Greek mythology? I feel like it is, or satire or something. They're in the same kind of probably somebody's going to butcher me for this, but yes, in that sort of mythology, and in that mythology, fawns, let's just use fawns because I can't say the other word, are crazy about nymphs. And nymphs are connected to, I need to write this down, guys. Evil fairy. So fawns. Oh, wait, well, I can write it. Satire. Crazy about nymphs. Have earth elements, so we can have, I can't write earth elements, so we can have water, and fire, woo, fire, air. I have to come up with more. Animals. That's 4. We have earth, of course. So what if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I mean, we need 8 in total. So this is the evil one, for some reason. Why would it be the evil one? Because I want it to be. We'll need to figure that one out. Water, fire, air. I just have to think about the witch now. Heart. Anyway, they have different elements connected to them. Maybe it will be different plants. Maybe it will be something like that. But in let's think that way, and then let's make them. These are the fairies. Which is really cool, because then we have connected both the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale and some Greek mythology. Who knew? This is a cool thing. You can put different things together and mash them up. So instead of fairies, we have nymphs. So evil nymph have connection to roots, and by having Briar Rose prick her finger on a thorn of a rose, she kind of gets connected into that root system as well. So she's connected through the earth, and she can see everything. She learns everything. So she learns, and she learns good. She learns evil. She learns everything. She's like an all seer. Seer. But then she wakes up. Like, no prince came to rescue her. She slept for 100 years. She wakes up alone. Crazy. She does know everything though. She's like 117-year-old in a 17-year-old body. In spirit, I guess. Spirit. But 17-year-old. So she's very, like, her body is young and she's gonna live for like what, maybe 100 years more, because they are, maybe they have a different lifespan than human does, but she's gonna live for a very long time, and she's not connected to the earth anymore. So she's half crazed by not having that same connection and having to live. And now having to live is almost a worse fate than just like dying with her family. This is getting really dark, isn't it? Living is a worse fate. So she wakes up alone. She lives, maybe, let's say, until she's, well, between the ages of 17 and 30. Well, maybe actually 17 and 20. She gathers all these different people that she has so much knowledge. She knows so much about everything. So she kind of creates this group of people, like this higher power kind of people that loves the idea of knowing everything. So she doesn't really want this, but they would create a court in a way. Like people find her and create a, let's say, create a civilization. Can't write that right. Slash religion around her. Living deity. Without actually being a deity, but she's there. She's alive. So, but she doesn't actually want it. But she's just there. She just knows everything. She just wants to die, to be honest. I'm just in my mind, like I'm jumping around, but that's just how I think it will work, I guess. Poor girl. So now I've built her story up around the fairy tale of the Sleeping Beauty, and as you can see, like, you can start like this and you kind of jump around a lot to figure things out. Oh, that's a nice little spread there. I will upload this underneath the Patreon tutorial as well, so you can see everything. But pretty much I have a basis to start from now, and I will add and I will change, and I will probably, sometimes I change things so much that at the end you probably won't recognize that the basic inspiration for a certain backstory or for a certain story in itself was that. So I think I'm just going to talk for the rest of this because it's a very talky video and it's more just about inspirations and stuff. But I don't know how many of you that are my patrons actually followed me when I started the process of writing the Snowcat Prince, for example, because I had no idea what I wanted to do with Snowcat Prince, like absolutely no idea. And the easiest way for me to figure that out was to go on Pinterest and look at things and then also finding things that I was inspired by at the time and also now, but more like I found it at around that time. So around when I started writing Snowcat Prince, I found out that whole thing in Japan, they have a concept called wabi-sabi, which is pretty much not quite perfect or like something off, and like the beauty in the wonky or the beauty in the unperfect. And I absolutely love wabi-sabi. I think it's such an amazing concept to have. And it's something that you would have in like anything that's hand-created would have some sort of wabi-sabi, because it's a bit off. But there's beauty in that off. If it was perfect, it wouldn't be as beautiful. And I love that. So I took that essence, and I also knew about, what's it called? Where you repair pottery with gold, which is called... Oh, I have to search this up. Japan, repair pottery, gold. Yes, please. Kintsugi. There we go. Jesus, I should remember that. But kintsugi, where if you break a ceramic bowl, instead of just throwing it out, you would actually repair the pieces together again with gold, and creating something even more beautiful with the gold and the cracks. And I love that idea too. So the Snowcat Prince is actually based on wabi-sabi and kintsugi, which is Japanese. But then that's the story started from that process. I won't spoil anything, but the whole story is based around wabi-sabi and kintsugi. And if you watch some of the previous videos, if you don't want spoilers, don't do it. But the previous videos where I'm kind of creating the Snowcat Prince, you can hear me talking about it and how I'm inspired by it. So you can find that on my YouTube channel. But so the main base of Snowcat Prince is that. But then I've added some Norse mythology in there, especially with the really, really deep groundwork for the world, which I don't want to talk about because that would just spoil a lot of things, so I'm just going to keep that to myself. But that is based on a very interesting part of Norwegian mythology or Norse mythology, and I absolutely love that part of the mythology. Specifically to do with the end of the world, pretty much. And then the world, or the city that Siva lives in, is very much based on Norwegian Old Norse costumes and buildings and stuff like that. And then you have the other side where I wanted the foxes. The only reason I wanted a fox in the story in the first place was because my boyfriend Phil mentioned that he wanted a fox in the story, so I was like, okay. And since I was already drawing so much inspiration from Japanese mythology, or I guess not mythology, but like concepts, I also found the kitsune stories to be very interesting, and shapeshifting, so I took that. But I tweaked it enough that it's there, but it's a bit more hidden. I'm sure a lot of people will see it, but you know, I've taken a lot of different things and just put them together in a hot pot and be like, here you go, here's the story. And I think that's like the best. I just really like mythologies and stories and stuff like that, so I think it's a very good way of creating something interesting and taking something that is a folktale and changing it into something that's yours. And that's completely fine. You're very much allowed to do that, and I like it. But you can't just take like the Red Riding Hood and just take that and do whatever you want with that. That's boring. Don't do that. You can do it, but for example, there's a few comics I'm currently reading that's very, very interesting, because they are based on certain mythologies, but they are tweaked enough that you can when you get the whiff of it, you're like, ooh, I know this story, and you get excited because you have a connection to that story, but it's hidden in all these other stories, so you want to continue reading. So the first one is Olympus Lore. I'll actually find it for you if I can show it. And the other one is called Four Leaf or something like that. So we have this comic, which is called Olympus Lore. Well, Lore Olympus, which is based on Greek mythology. Like every character is a Greek god, and I really like it, and it's very, very interesting. So I highly recommend you reading that if you want to see how somebody can adapt something. Of course, you can watch all the old Disney movies because they're also adapted, so same thing. Let's see what I'm subscribed to. And this one, oh, I love it. This story is actually based on the Red Riding Hood. But the Red Riding Hood is not just one character, it's multiple characters, from what I can understand so far. And they're witches. And you have a wolf, but the wolf's dark powers is a different thing. And the wolf's power is used to power thing, and you can also eat it, and the witches are hunting the wolf. And it's just really interesting. So please read it. I'm not going to say, I probably spoiled something there, but probably not. Read it, because it's really well changed enough to be its own story, and it's very clearly going to end differently than a normal... Actually, I don't know. I haven't read it, hasn't finished yet. Anyway, I think that is the end of this video, because I've been talking for so long, and I hope that it somehow makes sense on how you can do it. When it comes to experiences, it's different because experiences are so personal. It's not like a fairy tale or mythology is so rooted in what people think and like people's stories, and it's easier to find a connection with your audience if you have a mythology or a fairy tale as the base. If you have your own experience, then your audience needs to have a connection to that experience, so it's a different thing. But for example, I have a story idea for a book or comic, I don't know, called There Are Dragons in the Tree. It might be a children's book, but that is pretty much based on me and my friends, and we were really young. We weren't that young, like 7, 8 years old. We used to climb trees and imagine that we had dragon friends, and they would have like nests in the tree. So I have no idea where I'm going to go with that story, but the experience is that imaginary friend kind of side to a story. And I still don't know what I will do with that, but it will be based on that experience, but the story base will be something different. I don't know. It's all up to whatever you want to do. But yeah, as I said, if you haven't done a project like this before, and you are trying to come up with something, a small project of some sort, so you can do a book, I would highly recommend find a mythology, a myth, or a fairy tale, or folk tale, or something that you really find inspiring and you find something that you really like with it. Take that and change it. So take The Little Mermaid, but make the mermaid a rabbit. I don't know. Something completely different, and then just change every little aspect of that story to be something else. And you will still have that basic Little Mermaid story, but as your own story. Anyway, I took kind of a very different twist on things when I did this, but I think you can kind of get what I'm doing, of taking a thing apart, well, taking the base of the story, but changing all the little details so that it's my own story. Anyway, I'm gonna stop it here. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys at least enjoyed listening to me ramble about a possible project. If you guys want to see the project, if you have any ideas for the project, please tell me. That would be really, really cool. And yeah, have a lovely day, everyone. And if you have any suggestions for the next tutorial, please leave that in the comment section in the Patreon post, and I will make a poll next month. And yeah, that's about it. I don't know what else to say. I love you all of you. Thank you so much for all your support. I will update today, you guys with today, you guys with as well, God, can't speak, the package for the Magic Cats as well, because I am excited to show you what I've done. Anyway, I'm gonna stop now. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.